Kia ora, Year 9. I just made this video, got halfway through and my laptop battery died. So I'm going to do it again and hopefully this time it's going to work. This video is going to have quite a lot of work for you to do in it. So you must make sure you've got your book, your pen and your calculator ready to go. It's also a core skill that students typically find a little bit harder than yesterday's one, which was increasing and decreasing by a percentage. So I want you to make sure that you do plenty of practice at this and that you ask me for help with it if you're still having trouble with it when we finish. We will also be doing Dr. Frost practice on this skill, and then we'll be practicing mixing all of our percentage skills up together. Okay, so in this video, we're going to look at some real life examples, quite a lot of them, and we're going to learn how to find the percentage change. So finding the percentage change gives us a way to see how big a deal something is when it's changed over time. So I'm using some data here from Statistics New Zealand and a website called figure.nz, which has got some really cool graphs on it. The focus of this video, though, is not really going to be on the graphs, but just on getting a little bit of information out of them. So this is a graph showing the price of fish and chips in New Zealand, and I've just taken a couple of prices from that time series, from that data, and the first price that I've got is that in February 2014, so 10 years ago, a scoop, well, I think it's a scoop of chips and one piece of fish. I'm not completely sure. Anyway, the price of fish and chips was given as $6. And now in January 2024, the price of fish and chips, has gone up to $10.30. So you could ask quite a lot of good stats questions here, right? You could say, well, you know, fish and chip shops, they're not all the same, like which fish and chip shop? So this is some kind of an average of lots and lots of fish and chip shops around New Zealand. And we don't know exactly what they mean here by 1 unit of fish and chips. But forget about all of that because we're just going to assume all of those problems away and learn how to work out the percentage change. So step one is to see what happened. So the new price is $10.30 and we're going to take away the old price of $6. And that gives us $4.30. But now we want to compare that $4.30 and we always compare back to the original amount. So we compare the $4.30 to $6. And by compare, I mean that we divide it. So we say $4.30 out of $6 is how much of a big deal. So we get that on our calculator and we're going to end up with a decimal. And that should feel at this point in the course pretty comfortable, right? So we shove that in the calculator and we get out 0.71666 ... We now turn that into a percentage, right? We times it by 100 and we get 71.6 ... But we need to round it properly. And so because it's actually 66666, we look at this. If we're running to one decimal place, we look at the next number over, and in this case, we decide to round up. So we would say that the percentage increase here in the price of fish and chips is 71.7%. Okay, so just a couple of things to notice. The first thing that we always do is we just work out the change in whatever we've got. So that's step one. The second thing we do is we compare it to the original and we get a decimal. And from there, we turn it into a percentage and we round. Now, it is totally fine if you're confident with this to go from here to this step here using your calculator. Just be really careful with your rounding. Okay, in the next video, I'm going to do a decrease one, and there are a couple of ways to do this, right? So this is the number of people working for video rental companies in New Zealand. And this is actually in some ways quite a sad story, especially if you owned one of these video stores like RO Street Video. So back in 2001, there were over 2,000 people working in this industry, and now there are only 100, right? So sad for the people who own those shops. I guess we're all pretty happy with our streaming services, right? So that's why there aren't many people working for video rental stores anymore, right? But so back in 2001, we're up here and we had 2,250 people, and now we're down to 100. So there are two ways to do this decrease one, right? The first way is to go, well, the new number is 100 and the old number was 2,250. And that gives me negative 2,150. And if you're really good with negative numbers, like that is totally fine. Okay, so you can do it this way. So I'll do it this way first. So we get negative 2,150, and we're comparing that to the original number, which was this one here. So 2,250 people. And what am I doing now? I'm turning that into a decimal, and we get 0.95555 ... which is telling me that nearly all, or nearly 100% of those jobs have gone, right? But it's a negative that, and so that gives me negative 95.6%. Okay, so that's fine. I think if you're just explaining that to someone who's like 10 years old, you wouldn't say anything about a negative 95.6% change. That sounds really silly. So what we want to say instead is that it's a 95.6% decrease. Okay, so that's one way to go there, right? So notice that there I end up with this negative number because I went new number, take away, old number, right? And that gets me a negative number. But I don't have to do it that way, right? Like if you're just thinking about it, you're going to say, oh, there used to be 2,250, right? And now there are 100. So you're just working out that gap, right? So this is how I do it. I just say, what's that number? And I work with the positive number. So I say the decrease is 2,150 out of 2,250. And then I get my decimal, and I turn my decimal into a percentage. So I just do that, and then I just write decrease next to it. So that way I'm not working with negative numbers. I just have to always say at the end, have I got an increase or a decrease? Okay, on the next slide there are going to be some notes for you. I want you to make sure that you get these down, and also that you have written out in your books an example like one of these here. So step 1, going back to the slide here, step 2 is here, step 3 is here, and step 4 is here. I'm just going to take off some of the highlighty stuff that's on here. Let's see if I can do that without deleting lots of stuff. Yeah, okay, so hopefully that looks a bit better. So I do want you to get a good worked example into your notes. So pause the screen here and make sure you've copied this one in. And then here are the notes, right? So not too much to write down, but as I said, this is a hard skill. Okay, so I want you to have some words and some notes. So just copy these into your book. And now it's going to be your turn to do a whole lot of practice. So I'm going to show you 2 slides. Don't freak out. You don't have to do all of these. But this is information about baby names in New Zealand. And I thought it would be quite fun to look at some of your names and how many babies with your name there were the year you were born. And then to look at how many babies are called that still in 2024. And it's pretty funny because for most of you, you were called quite popular baby names, and those names are not as popular anymore. So you should be expecting that you're going to be finding quite a lot of percentage decreases in this exercise. Right, so for each of these, we're going to work out the percentage change. And I want you to do these into your book, and I'm going to do the first one for you. Okay, you don't have to do all of them. You can choose any 6 from that table. So I'm expecting if your name's in there, you'll probably do that one, and then 5 others. Okay, remember that your answer has to be a percentage, and it has to say at the end of it either increase or decrease. So I'm going to show you how to do, I'll do the Oliver one first, just for one more example, and then you're going to pause the video and do a whole bunch, and then I'll show you the answers. So there were 286 babies called Oliver in New Zealand who were born in 2011. And then in 2024, there were only 247. So let's go through our 4 steps. So step 1 is the change, right? So doing it the second way that I did it, we've got a decrease here of 39, right? So we're taking that 39 and we're comparing it to the original number, right? So we're comparing it to the first number in time, which is 286. So we get 39 out of 286. And what does that give me? Let's see. Where is my calculator? Boom. Is it working? Yep. So that gives me negative, the decimal that comes out on my calculator. Well, I don't get a decimal. Oh, sorry, I don't get a negative. I get 0.136363 da 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 da. And we turn that into a percentage, and it's going to be 13.6%, and it's a decrease. Okay, it's a decrease because the number has dropped. So that's the first one, right? So now it's your job to choose any 6 of those to do. And I know that will take a little bit of time and you need to do the working into your books. So in your book, just write down the name. So for example, if you do Wiremu, you'll write down Wiremu, you'll write down 2011 number, 2024 number, and then you'll write down the percentage change with your working. So 6 of those. Pause the video now, and then you can mark your work from the next slide. Okay, so here are the answers to that first table. So mark your 6. I thought this was quite interesting that the one that is the most stable by far in this bunch was Noah, and the one with the biggest increase in here was Asher, so which has got way more popular in the last 13 years, but most of the rest of them were decreases. Okay, so mark your 6 now, and then we're going to go on to the next slide. Okay, so because this is such an important skill, I'm going to make you do 5 more of these. So here's a bunch more names that are pretty, you know, some of these names are names of people I've taught, and some of them are names of my kids' friends and stuff like that. And one that I found really funny is, Arlo, I don't know if you're watching this, but there was no Arlo recorded in 2011, but by 2014 it was up to 80, and now in 2024 there are 156 Arlos. So that's a really big increase. The other one that I was interested in was Arthur has had a really huge increase. A lot of the other ones are decreases. And I chucked in a couple of girls' names in here because I thought it was also funny how many Emilys there were back when you guys were born, and then now how few Emilys there are now. So just choose 5 more there, and then I'm going to put up the answers to those as well. Okay, so here are the answers to that second slide. You should have 5 more done there. So well done if you've worked through lots and lots of those examples. As I said, this is a skill that is often done really badly by Year 9s, and it's one of those ones that is so useful for real life. So congratulations on getting through 12 minutes of percentage change. And now if you want to go and practice this on Dr. Frost or work on some of the earlier skills in this unit, that would be great.